And when people attack online, we understand where to run to and how to use these acts and these laws to protect ourselves as women and girls in this country. Because it is very relevant for us. Every day, somebody is attacked. Every day, somebody is harassed. Every day, somebody is abused. And the fact that you are a woman puts you at risk in this country. Now, we are walking towards the political season. This is why this conversation is very timely. Like I keep saying, the political window transfer has opened. 2026 will be very long. The media houses will struggle. The women journalists will struggle the most. Because whatever happens, women struggle the most. And that is the reason why we will struggle the most, especially those that will be covering politics and political talk shows. How safe are we as a country? Do we continue to attack, harass, and abuse people that are reporting? Or do we change our ways? How do we ensure that we partner as stakeholders, as partners, to ensure that we cut this off? I mean, the team for 16 Days of Activism was talking about what? How do we end digital violence? How do we end digital violence as a country? What are the commitments we are taking as a country? What are the commitments we are taking as individuals? How do we ensure that these commitments we are taking as a country and as individuals are being implemented? We are a country that have a lot of laws to protect us, but are the laws being implemented? And as long as the laws are not being implemented, we are not safe as people that are using the online space. And now all media houses are online. And the growing numbers of media houses in the online space is more than the numbers of media houses that are registered under the ministry and under Bureau. And the number of online media houses are not regulated, are not censored, are not monitored. And again, political parties, CSOs, and all the people that are looking for fame, they prefer these online media houses and this one-man mobile phone commentator, broadcaster, citizen journalist, the list goes on. Now you talk about news proper, people reference you to the TikTok news handles. You talk about where did you get the information. They refer you, send kina WhatsApp group ole. Kari de kije. How sure are you that that information is verified? How sure are you that that information is fact-checked? How sure are you that information is authentic? Again, Media Academy, GPU, has fact-checking aspects. There are a lot of people that have been trained to fact-check. When politicians, individuals, public figures, prominent people are being fact-checked in this country, they come after you. We have seen the instance of one of the ministers that was fact-checked by, who was it again? I can't remember his name. He had to come back online to fight it. How many politicians have been fact-checked? How many individuals have been fact-checked? But anytime you fact-check them, they have an issue or they come after you. And we are still talking about digital safety. We're still talking about online safety. And we are still talking about moving forward as a country. Now, how do we expect us to move? These are things we need to factor as stakeholders. These are things we need to factor as members of the press. Now, to those people that wake up one morning and decide to tarnish the image of an individual, using citizen journalists, using online platforms, using one-man media house or commentator or a broadcast journalist. What are you doing as an individual? What are you doing as a member of a political party? What are you doing as a member of a party or an institution or a community? How do we ensure that we take individual responsibilities? Today, if I wake up and I point my camera against Isato and tarnish Isato's image, you are happy because you're not in line with Isato or you don't believe in Isato's policies or her perspectives. But when I do it to you, the same person that was happy when I did it to Isato would be the same person to come back and attack. So the ball is in our court as stakeholders. One thing I would say here is we take individual commitments and call to actions. That whatever we get from here, we take it back to our community, to our groups, to our parties, to our associations, to our organizations. Because these are the things we do as women journalists. Like I said earlier, the only thing we can do is equip and train our members to ensure they defend themselves, they protect themselves. The issue of deepfakes, the issue of how sensitive your phone is, how data is circulated, how much risk you are exposed to because of your phone. Some of us, we are connected to every Wi-Fi in this country. Do we know the data that has been collected? Some of us are accepting and clicking on every link. Are we safe as women? Do we verify the links that have been shared to us? After sending raffle draw, you click the link. Visa lottery, you click the link. Any link we see, we click on. How well are you protected? Is your phone or your laptop on two-step verification? Is your, if you delete something, where has it gone to? The voice message you have forwarded, who did you send it to? That status you have posted, who saved it? Who screen recorded it? Who downloaded it? That Facebook Live or TikTok Live you have done, where will it get to? Who can recover it after 20, 30 years? What happens to me if I am sued for defamation, for slander, for libel? These are some few things I felt I should talk about because I am not a statement type of person. I just want to bring it closer and reference it to cases and scenarios we have witnessed in this country. We have one time seen women fight online. What happened? We have seen cars happen. Some of us follow car from 6 to 10 p.m. Some of us are the pushers and the movers of cars. Then, Damana, we did not even take our time to understand where, how, when, or what happened. Hey, ka amna. Diw sangam ka amna wow. Fun la. You connect. You enjoy the car and you come and interpret it in your own context and in your own language. The same online space there. Again, it is us women. And now men have decided to be our moderators and mediators. Now it is the men that will be the host and they invite us, the women, to come and come. And we're still talking about online safety. And all these things we are exposed to is the internet and the mobile phone. I think that is where I rest my, that is where I rest my case for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen, for that very insightful presentation there. What clearly stands out is that most online safety are not only personal issues, but institutional issues as well as responsibilities that we all need to address. When women are exposed to harassment, threats, and related online attacks without any support, it affects not only their safety, but also the quality and freedom of our journalism. And most of the time, we women were also responsible for that. It's not only identified by men as well. So I think it's high time that we also take responsibility. I would now like to invite the Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union, who will also give his presentation. Okay, we're talking about muscles and immunity, and for now, we will have 12 minutes to give their usual attention. Thank you.
I have taken more.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My co-founders, yes, President of the Union Association, and the Governor, President of the Royal, the Chair, everyone here present, political party representatives. We are here. We also invited the police, not so they are represented, but they are civil society organizations. But I represented here. Thank you so much for coming. I will be brief. After the change of government in 2016, there were promises of greater freedoms, protection of journalists, and media reforms. However, such promises have yet to be fully realized. From 2017 to date, at the level of the Gambia Press Union, we have seen at least 18 incidents of physical assaults on journalists and media professionals, including both male and female journalists. Most of the attacks on journalists that we have documented are coming from the police, especially when journalists are covering peaceful demonstrations, and also from political party militants during press conferences, also in political rallies, swearing in ceremonies, and these attacks are coming from both the ruling and opposition parties. Not all opposition parties also have seen those incidents, but we feel that we need to involve all political parties, or we cannot assume, or we cannot be sure that if your party have not attacked or assaulted journalists before, that they wouldn't do that in the future. So it's important that we are all in line and discussing these issues. What is more worrying is that despite the fact that assault is a criminal offense in Gambia, and we see that every time, in every day, people are being dragged to court for assault, causing illness, bodily harm, those kinds of stuff. But when it happens to a journalist, it's never investigated, and it doesn't see a day in court. So that's why for us at the Gambia Press Union. But also we are concerned by comments made by political party leaders. Sometimes the comments they make also agitate or push their supporters act on their words and physically assault journalists. In 2023, we have witnessed comments by the Gambia President seeking to threaten the state of press freedom of expression, which was followed by direct calls for online attacks on individual journalists and media houses when they called out state media organizations. But also where it all started, because these things have been happening also during the previous regime, during the dictatorship. But in 2017, immediately after the change, the first case of assault that we have witnessed was as a result of comment made by the government minister, then by any party that was in place, after we saw an assault on a previous report of the Korean newspaper, Eva. Just a few words from that minister at the time, resulted in a mob attacking and assaulting that journalist, and causing actual bodily harm to him. So journalists and media workers have also recently faced, we've seen some brutality from the police. For journalists who have been detained, for more than 48 hours, detained incommunicado, denied access to their lawyers and families. And then when they are being released, they were physically assaulted, journalists and media workers. So for the fact that these things are still happening unaddressed, both in terms of policy, in way of media law reforms, and in action by way of the police and political party militants or political parties refraining from physically assaulting journalists. We thought that it's important for us to bring all actors and stakeholders to have a discussion around these issues and the concerns that we have. Political politicians, security officers of legal forces, and civil societies are all key stakeholders in this discussion. What the Gambia president has done over the years from 2019 to 2022 was to have an initiative, one of which was a media security dialogue. This was held every year from 2019 to 2022 to 2023. This was in response to the attacks on journalists, and we thought that it was important to engage security agencies in media security dialogues to improve understanding of the role of journalists and media workers among the security agencies. Those forums not only address concerns of violent attacks on journalists, they were also meant to demystify misconceptions that equated the promotion of press freedom and freedom of expression with incitement to violence and to improve media security relations. As we have just emerged from a long dictatorship at the time, the forums were also meant to improve the knowledge of human rights in the security services, including the fundamental rights to freedom of expression, which includes press freedom. We also had political dialogue. Maybe some of you who are here from political parties today have participated in some of those dialogues. But we had annual media political dialogues, also intended for the same purpose, to enhance the safety and security of media personnel covering political party activities. These forums were organized as part of efforts to enhance the rule of law, democracy, and the safety and security of journalists in the country, including women journalists. And they were targeted at various registered political parties. At the time, we had 18 or 19 political parties registered. All of them were being represented in this annual media political dialogue that the Gambia Press Union was organizing. The Independent Electoral Commission also as a key stakeholder was also being invited to those meetings. So I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molu, Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union, for that powerful presentation there. What is particularly troubling about this is that it's not only the assaults themselves on journalists, but what comes after it. There is the silence and the inaction as well from authorities or those in the place of power. It sends a very long message that says, oh, our safety is negotiable and our freedom can be silenced and nothing comes about it. Because impunity does not only harm individuals, but of course the press itself, which is one thing that we really need to go away from, and I think we need more engagement on that part as well. And I would now like to invite Anna Jai to give us her presentation on the legal challenges and risks to safety of women journalists as well.
Good morning to my comrades on the high table, the Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union and the President of the Women Journalists Association, the President of the Gambia Press Union, and all the comrades from the media and civil society. I always feel very honored when I attend an event organized by the Women Journalists Organization, because I feel that we are partners or sisters in the work we do. Whilst the Female Lawyers Association is focusing on the legal aspect, the Women Journalists Association is focusing on the media aspect. But we more or less have the same mandate to promote the rights of women and children in the Gambia. My intervention today basically focuses on certain existing laws or laws in making. I know when it comes to talking about the law, it's very boring. So I'll try to make it as nice as possible. I guess even lawyers sometimes don't like talking about the law, but I'll try to, I'll try to do my best. As noted by the president of the Gambia Press Union in her opening statement, as a country, we have, made very important democratic gains in terms of having reforms in the media. And but we could say that even though there are reforms, there are still legal risks that are still apparent and which journalists, both men and women, face. So it is to be noted that the law itself can become a source of danger. When expression is criminalized, when digital communications are easily accessed by the state, and when safeguards are weak, journalists and women in particular face compound legal, digital, reputational, and physical risks. I would like to start with the constitutional and statutory foundation. Like Madam President just mentioned, it's important that as journalists, you know what is stated in the Constitution of the Gambia, because it's basically the mother of all laws. Everything that you have in other laws has to be consistent with the provisions of the Constitution. But I will also say that the Constitution, as a document, it provides a very wide framework and leaves it open for other laws to expand on its provisions. It is noted in Section 25 of the Constitution. It guarantees the freedom of expression, including the press. However, there are certain limitations, and that is why it's important to understand those limitations. It also mandates the state to make sure that the independence of the media is protected. It's very important as journalists and women journalists for you to understand this. Annette has mentioned about protecting women journalists, their rights, and the Constitution is basically the fourth instrument that has given you that rights. And it has stated that a woman should be accorded full and equal dignity as a man. So from the get-go, we would all agree that there is a document that is out there that is giving you this protection. But how do you now make sure that you enjoy this right that is provided for in the Constitution? There are certain laws that I'm going to talk about. I always say that when I go to forums where journalists are, I think they know their law more than even the lawyers themselves when it comes to the laws related to sedition and cyber crimes. As you all remember, in 2018, the Gambia Press Union did take up a matter at the Supreme Court of the Gambia. And in its final decision, criminal defamation was held to be unconstitutional. One could say that this was a watershed moment that removed one of the most notorious tools used to silence journalists in the Gambia. However, sedition is still present. And we were thinking that with the emergence of the new Criminal Act, it will be removed, but we still have incitement of sedition. So this is a law that you need to bear. I don't know, are you all aware of the new Criminal Act as journalists? Yes, it's important that you understand that this law is still there, and it's not forward thinking, but we can always, laws are always amendable, or you can always repeal along the way. False publication and broadcasting. False publication and broadcasting. It goes back to all the stories, and it was talking about, real stories of what's happening. Where did you get your publication from? Is it a reputable source? It's important as journalists and women journalists that you are aware or know that the publication you have is from proper source, because there is a criminal offense under the Criminal Act. So that is why I'm saying the law can be there to protect you, but it can also be a danger if you don't know what it means. So false publication, it criminalizes the dissemination of information deemed false in any material particular, including circumstances of negligence or recklessness, and may attract custodial penalties. You all know what custodial penalties are. You could go to jail. So it's important as journalists, women journalists in particular, because I see a lot of women journalists nowadays. It's very important that you understand the implication of this law. It's a very problematic provision in a sense that the way the online media is, the online media is framed and how we get our information, like Anne mentioned, we don't have any rules or any framework that is controlling information that is being shared. So it's very important that you are mindful. And also for investigative journalism, we have emerging investigative journalists in the Gambia. This law is a law that could really hinder the work that they're doing as investigative journalists, because we all know what it involves when it comes to investigative journalism. Sometimes the information you receive is not received from a public body. So how do you assess that whether this is false or not? But like it was mentioned by previous speakers, training and capacity building will help you to overcome these hurdles. For women journalists, your risk is amplified. You are not only facing the risk like your men comrades, but also sexual harassment. It's an area that it's very, how do I call it? It's considered normal in the Gambia, but it's not proper. And laws are there to protect. You have the Sexual Offences Act, and you have the Labor Act, which is now advocating for sexual harassment policies to be in the workplace. I hope you are all aware of the provisions of the sexual harassment in the law of the Sexual Offences Act and the Labor Act. Are you all aware? You're aware. Well, that's good to hear. At least we now have a law that is, putting some provisions for protection. And the cyber bill, it represents, I think it's one of the bills that the journalists don't like at all, because it represents one of the most significant threats to freedom of press. And there is no dispute that cyber-dependent crimes such as hacking, fraud, and system interference require regulation. However, there is concern, right? And these are some of the concerns that I'm going to note. Content, it has created content-based offenses around humiliation and self-esteem. How can you decide what is humiliation? Would we agree that it's very subjective? So if you are charged as a journalist that you've humiliated a minister or you've humiliated a director, by the time the court decides what is humiliation, probably you would have been either, I don't know, on a bill, going back and forth the court, and the stress, we all know how it is in the Gambia when you have a matter in court. You have some, I don't know, do you call them online journalists, the ones that are not trained but are very good at giving their opinions? So all the harassment that you go through, before the court decides whether it was considered a humiliation or not. It's very stressful. So I think this is one law that the Gambia Press Union should really, advocate and push to ensure that it's really looked at, because some of the words are very vague and it's open to different interpretation. As you know, in law, you have 4 types of interpretation, and the court can decide to use whichever way that it feels, and then you go on appeal, and the other court decides something else. So it's something that I would really urge the Gambia Press Union to look into it. Criminalization of possession of unauthorized data. How would you assess to know whether the data that you have is authorized or not? What determines what is authorized or what is not unauthorized? And it's something that I really feel that we really need to look at. I don't know when they were doing the consultation on the bill, whether there was intense consultation with the press union and whether your comments were taken on board at the end of the day. But this is something that we really need to look at. And as women journalists, it's apparent that you are exposed to online harassment, online abuse, and using this information or being targeted like that you have put in information that is not correct, you are easily attacked. I don't know whether you've recognized that if the same act is done by a man, the type of attack that a woman receives is always different from a man. We all agree. We receive more negative, even though we have done the same act as the man. So we suffer twice for the same act. And we also have the Information and Communication Act 2009. It has been here for a while. I don't know whether you have the chance to look at it, but it basically empowers investigators to intercept communications. And if they intercept this communication, there is no form of judicial oversight in terms of what they do. So who controls how they intercept? So I think this is legislation that we also need to look at, because it threatens the source protection, it threatens whistleblower safety, and it also affects investigative reporting on sensitive issues. For women journalists, surveillance can particularly be very harmful. Intercepted information can be weaponized against you. Imagine they intercept your phone and they find information or images that may tarnish your image forever. What I find very funny is that when women images are exposed, it's like your life is shut down. But when men images are exposed, it's like they're praised as kings, and I don't know how to call this. I find it very funny. But anyway, so these are some of the powers that the state has that we need to look at. But what is important, coming to the safety aspect, Annette has mentioned it in her statement, the Women's Act, it's a very, very important legislation. And it has very broad provisions that every woman in the Gambia needs to know about, because it protects every type of woman, whether you're the journalist or the lawyer or the woman in the market. It's a legislation that you could look at, and it's a legislation that you could use when this abuse or harassment happens. Because it states that it's a legislation that is eliminating all forms of discrimination against women, whether in the public life or private life. So if any of the acts that has been done to you, whether as a journalist in the newsroom or outside by the police or any security officer, this legislation protects your right. You cannot be discriminated. It protects you from all forms of violence. all forms of harassment, intimidation, and abuse. So even if you don't have internal policies or you don't have any specific law for the media, you have the Women's Act to rely on, and you could use it as a basis to make sure that you're protected. It ensures that your dignity is protected, your security is protected, and to make it more important, it has given a whole work on government, its agencies, and public and private institutions to ensure that the rights of women are protected. So I understand you are trying to create your own policies. It's not very easy to have these policies in a male-dominated field, but at least you have this Women's Act that you could always rely on. Because even if you have policies within the GPU or within the Women Association, these are policies. You know, it only applies within the association. It doesn't mean that it's law. But you have a law, which is the Women's Act, and it overrides any policy. So if you have a policy that is very discriminating currently, you can rely on the Women's Act to take it down. And I would really urge, I know they say lawyers will like to fight, but some of these rights, if you talk on the table, you talk in the room, and nothing is being done, you fight it in the court. And perhaps maybe you should do a test case and go to the court and see what they say. Because you have all these laws that are in different legislation that's protecting the rights of women. And as women journalists, you are not getting access to these laws. There are people that are accountable. Who's accountable? So the person who's accountable needs to be made accountable. And at least the law is there for any citizen to go and make a person accountable. So I would really urge you to look at these laws and see how best you could make use of them. Obviously, you have the international standards in terms of freedom of expression and the protection of journalists. Gambia usually is a very good signatory to all these international instruments, and those instruments are more or less, incorporated into our laws. So it's important, like I would say, for you to understand this law, the Criminal Act, the Cyber Criminal Bill. It's not yet law, but I think it's time that you fight for it to make sure that all this vague descriptions are addressed. And also to understand that there are other laws that are protecting you, even if what you're fighting for within the media arena is not, forthcoming. So I would really urge you to look into that. So I'll stop here at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Guy, for that clear legal grounded perspective there. While laws exist, still protection fails at some point of implementation, which is a very big issue because when law fails to become a legal remedy, when it is inaccessible, ineffective, and also slow, it becomes a risk instead of a protection, especially for media practitioners. And you also highlighted something which took my attention. It is very important for us as media practitioners to familiarize ourselves with the laws of the country, because when you know the laws, then you can know how to report without finding yourself in any difficulties with people who are in power of position. This is very important. But I will also ask each of the panelists a few questions and recommendations, and participants can also ask questions if you have any, or also give recommendations to broaden our perspective as well. I'll start with the Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union, Mr. Youth. Actually, since 2017, Mr. Youth, we have seen that perpetrators of physical assault on journalists have never been prosecuted.
So what does this actually say about political will and where exactly is the system failing, especially in terms of the police, prosecutors, or political leadership as well?
Yeah, I think that's a very important and interesting question. On our part, we've tried to push for this to ensure that impunity does not persist when journalists are violently attacked. Some of the cases that were had, some of them actually were reported to the police, and they said they would launch an investigation, but they never did, or it didn't go anywhere. And that's troubling, of course. Also, for all of those attacks, some of them, for the journalists that were involved, they've decided not to take legal action. It happened that we were not able to take this up as a union because assault is a personal thing. If someone decided not to pursue the case, we just can push for it. But our backing, they had our backing as well. For some of the other cases, we've been there, especially one critical example was the assault on a Ken Fadu journalist by a staff of the presidency. It happened in front of police officers. It wasn't even us or the journalists who lodged a complaint because it happened right in front of them. They made the arrest and take the person and detain him and in Banjul. And we were all there. We wanted them to investigate that case and push it up, but it didn't go anywhere. So at that level, you would think there is no political will, to ensure that there is justice for journalists who have been attacked or assaulted. Yeah, but also there is a lack of will from the security forces, especially the police, that are supposed to investigate and prosecute these crimes. Because for most of them also, the police themselves are the perpetrators of this.
Thank you so much for that. And now to Madam Jai. Earlier on, you asked a question on your presentation about possession of unauthorized data. So, in your own legal perspective, I know some might have an understanding of that, but just to clarify it, what does that mean and what does it determine? Yes, thank you. It all goes back to the source of the data. Because if it's something that let's say, you're dealing with information from the Ministry of Defense, and that information only certain people within the probably National Security Council can have access to that data, and then it lands in your phone or you have it somewhere. That is unauthorized because it's not a data that, as a journalist, you can just get like that. Even if you're going to get it, it has to follow a procedure. So if the data that you have does not come from the source properly, it could easily be termed as an unauthorized data, and or files that are confidential. I mean, not that confidential files cannot be accessible to journalists, but there are all procedures that you get access to the data. Let's say the court. I mean, the court records are usually public records. As journalists, you should have access to them. But you can just go and just grab it from the judge's file without probably going to the registrar to get the information, or maybe it's an exhibit or something like that. So I think it all goes back to the source of the information. Because obviously, if you have your phone, it's your phone, it's personal, it belongs to you. But the information that you have, is it an authorized information? So how you get your information is very important. And that is why I say you need to know the law, because law is one area that anywhere you go, there's a law that governs it. Even this hotel, there's a law that governs their operation. So it's important that if you're dealing with any specific sector in terms of your reporting, you need to know the law that governs that sector. And if you need information from that sector, how do you get it? I mean, that is what I would say to help you, prevent yourself from getting into trouble. Yeah.
Still on that, and what I said, when law is no effective, it becomes a form of risk instead of protection. We all know access to data in the Gambia. It's a very huge challenge, and in journalism, we deal with time. In as much as possible, they need to get the data from sources for it to be authorized, but sometimes getting that data is a problem. And if you're in the investigative sector, you are dealing with time sometimes, even though it might be a lengthy time frame for that report. But in that case, when you try to get that report on your own, based on your own investigation, and you have tried to do all of the legal remedies to get that at your heart, then it's still proceed.
So, I mean, the law, as much as it can be strict, but it can also apply some reasonableness in terms of steps that one could take. But if there's a strict provision, right, there are certain things that are very strict. Even as a lawyer, you can do much, even if a case goes to court. It's like how do they call it sometimes in court? I think strict liability. You did it or you did not do it. The fact that you did it in that way, you're automatically liable. But in certain circumstances, if you have taken steps to get the information, let's say you went through the what's the name, the commission, the information commission, and you made a request, and they have probably received the information, but for whatever reason, giving it to you for whatever reason, they tell you that, oh, wait, we're waiting on this. But the fact that the information has left the ministry, you've received it, it has left proper custody, and you have received it. Just because some person has some personal reasons why you cannot use that information, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Because it's not like they're not giving you an official reason why you cannot give out the information. It's a very tricky one in terms of getting data. And I think it becomes very difficult when it comes to government. And even the commission, it's finding it difficult because I've spoken to the chairperson, I've spoken to one of the members. They have written to certain ministries, and they themselves are finding it difficult. But what I told them is that you have the legal avenue. The law allows you to take them to court. Take them to court. You understand? So if I mean, no, I know it's going to be too long, but I always believe that there has to be a test case when it comes to dealing with authorities that don't want to apply the law. You have to test the law and ensure that, I remember in my practice, there was a time that we had a client who had a case against the government ministry. And, I'm sure they thought it's government, nothing's going to happen. We went to court, we got a judgment, it was a monetary judgment, and the government was not paying. What? The sued accountant general, he came and he paid the money. So sometimes we just need to test the law and see how far it gets us. But situations like that do happen. And I guess in those situations, you will have to tell the court you acted in you took all reasonable steps to ensure that you are doing things rightly. But you cannot be reckless in getting information. That's the advice I would give. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Guy. Before we end the floor, I would just like to ask Annette as well one or two questions. Annette, we know there's a code of conduct from GPU that each media house or managers need to implement in their workplaces, but we know that implementation also is a problem. So, in your own opinion, as the president of Women Journalists, how does this clearly affect the internal well-being of women and also especially the harassment policy and the retention of women journalists, especially young reporters and their mental health as well?
So I will always reference my responses to cases and scenarios. So most media houses do not adopt to newsroom safety policies, nor do they adopt the sexual harassment policy of the Gambia Press Union, nor are they going by the constitution or the laws of the land, including the Labor Act including the Labor Act, and do not have institutionalized policies. Again, I referenced the case of Dija recently, the last case that went on, where we have seen political parties used photos of Dija and Mustafa and were circulating it online. Now, this has individually affected them as individuals at one point, and to say, like you said, nothing comes out of it, there is no political will. There is no institutional support. Now, when these things happen, you realize that even your media houses do not speak out about these issues, not to mention the political parties, nor our direct ministries or our line ministries, which does not exclude the Ministry of Gender and the Ministry of Information. Now, if you had asked me personally as Annette or as women journalists, what do we do? The only thing we would continue to do is to engage in dialogues, to engage in engagements between us and media managers and media editors, but also ensuring that the Women Journalists Association creates a safe space for women in the media. And this is why consecutively we have been hosting the annual Safe Space for Women in the Media, where we bring women and girls, women, especially young reporters, to have a safe space where we have conversations and offer moral and psychosocial support to our members as to how do they navigate over these things. So basically, for now, this is what we do because the laws we have are not being respected, the policies we have are not being implemented.
I'll now take a few questions from the floor. You can ask any of the panelists if you have any questions.
Okay. You can make comments also.
Is it morning or afternoon? Good afternoon. My name is Yanke Ture. My question will go to Miss Anna or Mrs. Anna. I really want to know what determine unauthorized, or will I say authorized info? Because in most cases, when you go to certain institutions to ask them of certain like you want to know some information, what they will tell you is this is private or this is for this and that and that. And at some point, if you write a story, they will bring back those information to the public just to clear their status or defend themselves. But when you were asking them those questions, they refuse and say these are rather things that are, internal issues or whatsoever. It happens when we were in parliament. If there is a parliamentary reporter here, in most cases when the defense committee are having their session, they don't allow us to go in. We do respect them, but there was some point when they asked us to go and report some of their information because they have this important, or I can say international partners that came in. I stood my ground and said to them, we are not coming. And we unite and say, we are not coming in because when we want the information, you don't want to give us information. Now you want your information out and you want us to go in, we are not coming in. So in most cases, I stand and ask myself, what determines authorized and unauthorized information? When the things that they say is not authorized, when they feel defamed, they come out to show it to the public. But when you were asking, they said these are unauthorized information. I really want to clear this thing out. Thank you.
Any second question or third? Yankuba?
Thank you very much. Yeah, just taking it from an statement that online safety. We all know that most of us save contacts of politicians. We save contacts of security, and then most of us will write on status. And when we see their status, they see our status. And then one of our code, we are talking about neutrality. We are talking about objectivity. We are using the status to castigate. You have your Facebook, you are attacking the government. And now the urge for TikTok. I see a lot of female journalists doing TikTok. And what they say there sometimes is sometimes not actually related to our job. So some of the attacks actually come because of the passive things they see about what you say and the conclusions they make about you. But I believe there are some journalists also doing well, female journalists, and then they're not subjected to those type of harassment. So usually, I believe some of these things are self-invited. So our activities online, we should also understand. Another thing from Annette's statement is sometimes the capacity in terms the Wojak actually is doing well in terms of capacity building. But you see, simple mobile phone is being used to lure a guy. Like she talked about the online medias unregulated. In the Gambia, usually it's like a corner shop. Opening online media is like even at your home, you can just have a small house there and just take someone who is from grade 12 or sometimes from Majak sometimes. With respect, with the trainings they go through, the capacity, because I know what they learn at Majak. You allow yourself to be exploited by someone just because the person gives you an iPhone just to go and stream and also use it for your private life. So I believe like there should be also self-esteem amongst the journalists, especially female journalists, that you don't take any job. That you are going for journalists, you have your advanced diploma from Majak, you should be paid something worth of your advanced diploma than going to be a boy for someone sitting in Italy or in Germany and just sometimes send you 50 euros and using a mobile phone data and just anything that happens, you just rush, just go and take live stream and that's all. I think journalism goes beyond that. Thank you very much.
Any order? We have the political party and the CSOs here. Let's take
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is just a contribution to the discussion. So I just want to say one thing. The first one will be a question. I don't know what the press union are doing to try to control the journalism area, because many a time you see people reporting, and if they have problem, when they report, they will say that it's not a journalist. What are the methods or the requirement to make somebody a journalist? I want to know that. And secondly, coming to the political aspect, I think some of the journalists, most of the time, they give favoritism to other political parties than one another. Because I believe it should be their responsibility to know every political party that is existing in this country. If they are interviewing or they are giving reports to parties, I think each and every political party needs to be given access to your platform. But many a time, they will not give you access. The parties that they are giving access, at times they need something in your political party. If they come, you will say no. Because you are not regarded as a political party. And every political party in this country, I don't say that there's any political party which is small or there are at least we know our strength, but as far as you register, you are a political party and you should be given that regard. They should try to know where your party headquarters is, so that whatever they are doing as far as politics is concerned, they can able to knock to your door. If it was is a program, they can invite you. If at all they want an information, they can come to your political party and get this information. But if you look at how these political journalists are being done in this country, there is a lot of segregation, because the parties that they feel that, because to me I see that some of these journalists, they try to monetize the profession, and journalism is a very dignified profession. It's a very dignified one. But many of you guys are trying to monetize it in the sense that, because you may say that if you come to my party, NRP, might be my party leader will give you something. Are you getting what I'm saying? Then you'll be interested of focusing on NRP to cover their program, to grant them interview, because you expect something from them. And journalism is not about that. Journalism is very ethical. It's very professional. But some of your members, I'm not saying all, but some of your members are trying to monetize it. So for now, this is what I have, maybe in the long run.
So they come down there or they cannot-
I think there was a question sent to Madam Anna, but I'll just try to summarize his. He's asking if there's any form of accreditation or license given to journalists to practice, like what determines for one to be a journalist as well. So you can answer that. Plus, I think it was from her on authorized and unauthorized data, and also what determines that. I know you explained it earlier, but just for clear understanding as well.
I'll just give an example. My own profession.
Just because you went to the University of the Gambia to study law does not give you the right to be a lawyer. Well, you can be called a lawyer, but you have to go through bar school. You have to pass bar school. You have to do pupillage. And once you finish your pupillage, you apply for enrollment. And enrollment is a process. There are certain requirements that you need to fill in. And if you don't, apart from just passing your exams, you have to fulfill those requirements. I know most people don't notice it, but the names of lawyers are published, the ones that are going to be called. And if, as a citizen of the Gambia, you don't feel that this person has the proper character to become a lawyer, you can oppose it. I've seen it done in Sierra Leone. Gambia, we don't pick up these things. But I've seen it done in Sierra Leone where somebody applied to be enrolled and it was opposed because the person felt that he is not a fit and proper person to become a lawyer. So I don't know whether that is something that we have in the media, but if it's not, I think it's something that I will recommend. Just like they call the lawyers an honorable profession, I believe the media, they call it the fourth arm of government. So if you're a fourth arm of government, you have a responsibility because Mary talks, Kirby listens to you, and whatever you say, they believe it's the right information that you're given. So I guess when it comes to accreditation, maybe this is something that the GPU can look into, because even getting enrolled, if you're not part of a bar association, whether it's a bar association or a law society, you cannot be enrolled. You have to be part of a bar association who also has their rules and regulation. And we also have the General Legal Council, which is the body responsible to discipline us lawyers. If, let's say, a client complains that you have done something unethical, you can be suspended or you can be even taken off the roll. So these are all steps that are put in place by the law, because the work that we are doing, it's very critical. And I believe the work that you guys are doing is even more critical, because information that is out there, you cannot bring it back. So it's very important. That is what I will answer to that. I'm sure maybe Annette will add. In respect of my comrade there, in terms of what is unauthorized, it takes me back to knowing the law or the institution that they are dealing with. I was just, whilst we were talking, I was just scrolling through the Access to Information Act, and it clearly spells out what information government public bodies should publish within 30 days of them being in existence. And how, as an individual who wants to get information, how you make it. So I gave an example of the court. When it comes to the court records, the moment it's there, it's public records, and it's open to the public to have access to it. But when it comes to cases that are dealing with children, you cannot just publish like that. That's why in some cases, the name of the child is not even stated, because there's a specific protection somewhere else that is giving that child the right to be protected. So as long as you know that this law is something that I can get, even with it's a public record, it's a public record. I can put it out there, but if it's something that you have to go through a system, unfortunately, you'll have to go through that system. But what is important, I guess, as the GPU, because I believe you're the ones who are going to make more use of this Access to Information Act, I think it's to really work with the Commission to ensure that the steps that they're supposed to take as a Commission with the relevant government ministries are taken up. I think also it comes to being aware. I know there's a lot of work that was done by Article 19 in terms of training the public bodies, but I always find when it comes to these trainings, the decision-making people are never in those trainings. And as young officers, they're there, but the people who give the final approval, they're not in those trainings. So it's important that, they're aware of these things. And it's important that the Commission really pushes for this. It's very, very important, so that it will make it very easy for you as journalists to get the information. And even the MPs, sometimes, I've interacted with some of them, not everyone knows the law. So it's important that you also have a dialogue with them. Have sessions like capacity building for them. And if they do understand, they do, even sometimes help you with the work that you do. So, I wouldn't say just because you don't give me, I will not come back. It's a sign of, okay, I also have my power, but you have to always remember that the public depends on you. I don't know whether you take an oath, right? Or you don't take an oath? Okay. I think it's important because as lawyers, whether you're Christian or Muslim or you affirm if you don't believe in anything, you take an oath that you are going to be an officer of the law and you owe a duty to your client, but you owe a duty most to the court. So this oath that you take, that's why they hold you to it. So I think as journalists, if you take an oath that you'll give proper information to the public, I don't know. I don't know whether it's in other jurisdictions journalists do that, because journalists are sort of like the birds; they're free. They're not like restricted in so many corners. But I don't know what the best way to deal with these things. But I believe that it's a very honorable profession, and you need to make it honorable. I've had one Senegalese journalist who said that as a journalist, when you sit with lawyers or you sit with bankers, you sit with accountants, they should be even more prouder than you should be more prouder than them, in a sense that you know what they don't know. Because as lawyers, probably we're just boxed in our law. But for you, you have every sector. So it's an honorable profession, and I think it deserves recognition. I think as a country, Gambia, maybe, I don't know what happened in Jawara's time. I was in Pearl, I was young, very young, or even not born. But we lived in a dictatorship for 22 years. I grew up in a dictatorship. So probably we are still learning to know what it means to be an environment of free information. So some of these government institutions themselves, they don't know, some people don't know any better. And if we build the capacity and engage them as more of I don't know whether within the different ministries, they should have a media unit. No, they do. I think there's a lot of interaction that needs to be channeled for the benefit of the journalists through those offices within the ministry. I think it will really help if we build their capacity and ensure that there's a free flow of information. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. On what controls GPU has or requirements on who is a journalist. So it's a difficult one because we have not had that in the form that journalists will be accredited in the Gambia. We are working towards it. What we have in the charter, the General Charter of Ethics for Journalists, is the Code of Conduct for Journalists. A journalist is an individual who gathers, processes, and disseminates news and information to the public through print, broadcast, or digital media platforms, adhering to ethical standards of truth, accuracy, and public interest. If someone is working like this, then we can say the person is a journalist. Okay, we have the Media Council of the Gambia. It's a self-regulatory body that is meant to police the journalists to ensure that they are working in line with this code of conduct or the charter. The challenge we have with the Media Council is that it is not backed by an act of parliament, which we are working towards. Like in Kenya, Ghana, and other countries, they have their media council or a national media commission established through an act of parliament that issues accreditation to journalists. If you want to practice as a journalist, they must issue an accreditation card for you to practice as a journalist. And you will have to go through certain requirements to meet them. At our level, we are working towards that. We've been discussing with the Ministry of Information, about how we can give some legal backing to the Media Council of the Gambia to ensure that at some point, the council is able to, and so journalists are accredited to practice journalism in the Gambia.
Thank you so much for that clarification there. I think we will actually blame GPU for this because for so long we have been hearing, oh, there will be accreditation for media practitioners to practice, but it is not. If we see that the media profession is being weakened, I think it's due to our systems that we have in place as well. Because when it comes to lawyers, you can't just acclaim yourself as a lawyer or as a doctor like that. But journalism itself, going to the university, studying for 4 years, for now, for me, I see it as it has no use. Because you have your degree and somebody else who doesn't have their degree, or somebody else who is not even having a degree, but actually with some of the criteria, it's quite different. Every single person on Facebook is a journalist. Sometimes you that is even practicing, your source is not even that relevant as those who are having more followers on the media, on Facebook, TikTok here and there. Our parents tend to listen to them more, like Mrs. Jai said. Once you send a message in WhatsApp, they believe it because why? Oh, Pamol has 10,000 followers on Facebook, this is what he said, and it is true. Oh, Yamuka reported this on Foria. No, I don't think it is true. And this is really affecting us. Countries like Zimbabwe, Egypt, Tanzania, and even Ethiopia. You cannot just call yourself a journalist like that. So I think this is really weakening the systems that we have in place, and that is why sometimes even the laws that are here, they are being used against us as journalists because we are not respected, and honestly, that is the truth. When we see with lawyers, when we see with doctors, they look down upon us. Sometimes, even if you introduce yourself as a journalist, you're not even that much relevant as other professions. And I think it's really unfair. We're not boxed in one place, and we have all the information. We report on legal cases, we report on financial cases, and we report on almost everything in the country. And also, Madam Ture also made mention there that they agreed when they went for that event and they had
closed door meeting. You cannot have a closed door meeting and you want me to report on that. Report about what? And I think we need to have that agreement. I know I should not be making personal comments, but this is very important. If you invite me for a closed door meeting, I am not going to report on that because what am I going to report on? At the end of the day, report on these things. And these are the same people who come out and contradict what we have been saying. And at the end of the day, credibility becomes a problem because why? We gave them that platform. And Yankuba also mentioned something about we giving ourselves that relevance is very important. Just because you are a journalist, I know the wages are bad for media practitioners. The payment is really bad. A journalist cannot be compared to other people on what they are being paid. But again, we need to accord ourselves that respect. Because just because you want that money, somebody is willing to pay $2,000 just for you to say something, you take that money, and at the cost of your own credibility, you report on that. You have to go to an event and somebody just offer you something, you go for it. I remember there was a documentation that we were supposed to do for someone. We know this project, some of them they pay really well. And this is a bulky document. They came, okay, this is what we're going to pay you. I'm like, no, that's not my charges. And they went to somebody else in the same institution. It's unbelievable what they charge. Because at the end of the day, it's not only about you, but you are also posing a challenge for your own colleagues. Because if I charge you this amount and you go to Yankuba and they charge you a very low cost, obviously, journalists will so you cannot even charge by your standard. What do you offer? It's very important. This is what I offer. You can't pay, I can't pay. So I think there should be a legal agreement in that frame, and GPU also need to come on board. Because sometimes even GPU, what they pay us in certain events, that's it. But it's the truth. You are here. So now back to the newsroom. And then I will still come to you. I know there have been trainings, a lot of trainings to empower women voices, one like this and others. But again, aside from the normal workshop, because we know after the workshop, obviously, follow-up becomes a problem. What else can we do to make sure that women are being protected, our voices are being heard, and we are not silenced?
Before I respond to your question, I'm not a big fan of GPU, but I think I can say something here. What you said is valid. We need to improve. We need to work on it. But if you had asked me, I'll say there is progress because there is the collective bargaining agreement to ensure the rate or the standards of payment for somebody with a higher diploma, a BSc, like from a junior reporter to an editor or a media manager. So that aspect, I think GPU has worked on. And again, GPU is membership based, and members of GPU are given membership cards. That is something the union has done. Now again, there are some of us practicing active journalists from GRTS to the last media houses that do not give a cup of tea to the union or its affiliates, right? And there are some of us that are active and practicing journalists with BSc, MAs, and the masters that have zero regard for the union except they are a victim and depends on the union to support them. That is where they know the union exists. But even to do that is a problem. So it's both sides of the coin. And again, the task we would have to hold GPU, SG is here, VP is here, the president is here to account to ensure that these things are looked into. Who is accredited, given accreditation or GPU membership card, is monitored, is valued, who is given the union press jacket, what number of jacket do you have, who have you issued the press jacket that is out there covering on behalf of the union or using the name of a journalist. There has to be a clear distinction, we all agree. But then there are measures in place and we need to ensure that these measures are emphasized. Now, to the question you have asked, what do we do to ensure there is continuity after trainings? Now, for Women Journalists Association, I don't know for GPU, but for WOJAC, what we do is if we train you on reporting on women and children, you need to produce a story on reporting on women and children as per what you were trained on in reference to the GPU Code of Conduct. There are some people that have attended the mentorship program and some trainings. Before we even end the training, published story is by force. So this is what we feel we can incorporate to ensure there is change, to ensure there is continuity, to ensure there is progress. Again, back to Yankuba's topic. It is relevant that as women journalists or as Gambian journalists that have built relationships with politicians and political parties, there needs to be a degree of integrity and independence. You are interacting with politicians and political parties because you are doing your work and there is a story to be done and it has to be done. And part of doing that story means you are building a professional relationships with these people. And at the end of the day, some of them are neighbors, some of them are families. But once you wear that hat or that cap of a journalist, it is for you to cover and report ethically unbiased. And there was somebody that mentioned about media houses or journalists doing favoritisms for journalists or for political parties or whatever. Now, I'm saying this that most GPU members or journalists that are covering politics, I'm not talking about individual media owners that have TikTok accounts and Facebook accounts. I'm talking about professional journalists. As per the code or the ethics, is it a code or a law from the IEC? It states that every political party should be given a platform based on the number of minutes or hours. If I give you 10 minutes, I give every other party 10 minutes. Now we know that there are officially 22 registered political parties and 2 more yet to be officially confirmed, meaning 24. So when you give one 10 minutes, you are expected or obliged to give everybody 10 minutes. Now, another thing we should be doing as media houses, they are paid for content, they are paid for airtime. There are political parties that are buying hours, that are buying minutes, that are buying, let's say, a 2-hour talk show. If you buy an airtime from my media house, what I should do as a professional media institution or a professional journalist is to notify my audience that this is a paid-for airtime by X, Y, and Z. Now, that they paid for. I am not giving it to them as a reporter or as a media house. So if your political party can afford buying airtime, be my guest and buy your airtime and promote your agenda. This is what I can say in response to that. Thank you.
So I'll still open the floor if anyone has any more comments or questions. You can still address it to any panelists. Any questions? Okay, back again. Go on.
Well, thank you very much. To all female journalists, election is approaching, and we all face harassment, being a man or a woman. But I will say that us women are more vulnerable. We are used in many occasions. Most of the times when I try to explain this, I said, Keta will say, "Bail turbi, bull mention turbi." But there was a time that I made a report. This was a parliamentary report, and this minister came to me and said, "My story should be down because I made one error." But I stood my ground and said, "If the story is down, I am not reporting for that media house anymore. So there was this back and forth to an extent. I asked a question to that minister and say, what I mentioned is this. Is this not in line with the government? The person said, yes, but you should. I said, hence, there is yes. There shouldn't be any but. And this is my ground. This is what I saw. So in most cases, this government, or will I say institution, government ministerial, how to call it, departments, they will try to, will I say, censor your media house, or, because they are giving you something, they will force your media house to do something in their favor just to intimidate you. So you as an individual, this is where you stand for your individual responsibilities. You as an individual, you have to stood your ground to say, this is what I will do and this is how I will do. But in most cases, if you do that, then you're opal, but you are trying to fight for your integrity. But in order to fight for your integrity, you end up losing your work. There was an instant, I don't want to mention that media house. I was working for that media house. We were 5 in numbers that were shot through a WhatsApp message. I wanted to stand against that person, but imagine others stood back and said they cannot do that. I alone cannot stand. So it's also come back to individual responsibilities. We as journalists don't support each other. This is why all this harassment and all these things is happening to us. If one person is attacked, when we all stood together, that person will not be attacked again in certain cases. But in most cases, if one person is attacked, it's us, the journalists, that will stand and say, Bahna Simom, this and that and that, this and that. At the end of the day, it will not only affect that person, it will affect us all as journalists. When they are talking, they will not say individually janky, they will say journalisty. So to stand for each other is another thing in fighting against what we want.
Any other colleagues from political parties, civil society?
I think my question will be directed to Annette. It's not everybody that has a thick skin. And there are instances that no matter how you protect yourself online, you will still face harassment, people will attack you. And most of the time, it affects you mentally. So I want to ask, I don't know if that has been said already. I want to know whether, let's say, in the case of DJs, things that happen sometimes, you will see that she's drained mentally. Is there a procedure to help her gain back her self-confidence to continue what she's doing? Let's say, after those things happen, you call her and give her therapy, or things like that that help her get the confidence back to continue what she's doing. I want to confirm if that happens. Thank you.
Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my question is directly to Madam Enjoy. I just want to know a little things when it comes to laws, especially female journalists in the Gambia. Sometimes there is a lot of perception when it comes. The law is there, but how is the implementation working? For example, we have a lot of journalists can say, okay, I want to pursue this case, but how fast is it going to work for my favor? Thank you.
Any other? A question? Can I take that one and come back?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I want to talk about the safety of female journalists that we are talking about. I think the main problem women journalists are face is thinking vulnerable. Vulnerability is the main cause of every problem that women in any field we are facing because we think that we are vulnerable. The moment you stop thinking that way, everything will work for you. Because most of us, maybe I'm in programs, I'm in the newsroom. But if your boss realize that for this one, I cannot do any manipulation against the person, wallahi, you will be safe because the person will never even attempt to do any manipulation against you. Yes, one thing also you should accept is sometimes if your boss think that you are not in line with him or her, there are certain opportunities you will not enjoy. But then if you want to enjoy certain opportunities, you will start thinking vulnerable. You cannot stand your ground. So I urge all in the practicing field, you stop thinking vulnerable. Even those women that want to come out in politics, vulnerability is our main challenge. Yes, because we think that we cannot do anything on our own. We have to rely on men for us to move. So this is my contribution.
I like this. Let's stop thinking vulnerable. Let's stop thinking vulnerable.
Thank you very much. I'm a fan of the Senegalese media. I watch sometimes Sen TV and others. You see women actually hosting very wonderful talk shows. I think we need that in the Gambia. Like all of us say, "Kunyeme akara ikubuga akara da nga nyeme kani." Because politics come with fire. It comes with fire. And then we should not expect that it's going to be easy, especially next year it's going to be elections here. So I'm looking at the aspect of due process, how you work with GPU. Usually, when things happen, the first point of call is GPU. Usually, people report their cases there. For example, I was assaulted by the prison officers. GPU, when I informed them, they quickly did things. The prison authorities quickly, on that day, they held a meeting of those who assaulted me. I was sitting there. All of us narrated, and it was addressed quickly. But I believe we should also respect GPU. Why did I say that? Is usually people would have issues and then report to GPU. Before GPU is done, you are on the talk shows talking about it, and trying to, jeopardize the due process. And in the next minute, if GPU calls you, my family said, let me forgive them. But there you are talking, and people are thinking GPU is not doing anything. I think we should also see mention it, testing the laws. For me, if you taught me, I will not forgive you, unless and until you own before your authorities, you did it and you address it. So I'll give a scenario. Just last month, I was verbally assaulted by a lawyer. He felt that he could say something in a court. He's a senior lawyer. I don't want to mention his name. I told him, you have to withdraw your statement or else you will see the real me. He said no. I wrote a petition at the, let's say, official complaint at the General Legal Council. This is very, very senior lawyer because I look at the enrollment list. Usually, legally, they give us this. He was enrolled in 1996. He's a very, very senior lawyer. So when I reported him at the General Legal Council, he was called, I was called, I brought my witnesses, and then he was put to order. And then in fact, there were things they wanted to take against him, but since he apologized, I told him that's the end of it. This is what I told him in the court. You have to apologize, or else we take another step. Now that you apologize before General Legal Council, I don't need anything from you. So this is the end of the case. So we must always actually test and have fire. If they throw fire at you, you throw fire.
Okay, we're almost at the end tail of the event, but I would like to each of the panelists that have been addressed by questions to just answer in 2 minutes. Annette, most of the questions are for you.
I was going to say all the questions are to me, so I can answer each question 2 minutes.
No.
So we looked at your question about what do we offer. Now, like, what's her name again? Like Jackie said, most of the time we cannot go far because the people in question would usually back out. So, for instance, the case of Jackie and Co. We told them to write officially. We met the media owner and address the issue. Like she says, sometimes you need to go by the law because in Gambia, diplomacy does not work. People do not even value the professionalism in this country. And me, if you know me, Today I am a little bit calm. I don't know what came over me today. Maybe I am overexhausted. But man, I have a lot of zeal and energy, and I'm always ready to fight, especially something that has to do with women. I personally confronted her. And if you ask me what have you regretted in these 3 years of heading Women Journalists Association, it's taking that bold step. Not because I am scared or I felt bad. No, I did not feel bad, and I still will not feel bad, and I can do it again without any rumors. But the point was, the people that I went to fight for withdrew in the middle of the fight. They put me in a funny position and made me a hypocrite and made me feel stupid. So I've learned my lesson. Now you come and bring a complaint about your editor, your CEO, your manager, and you are not willing to write or have a dialogue with the person in question, or will come back and tell us, no, my sister said I should let it go. I am not part of that business anymore. Anna will be my witness. And for a year plus, I did not talk to her. When I realized that this was the thing, I approached her. I said, you know what? I am not sorry. What you did was wrong. It was unprofessional. But I feel bad because the people that made me attack you walked out on me. She laughed and said, Sumarakanga, dumalako jabe. Right? But how did you make me look? Out of 5 people, only 1 person was willing to talk. All 4 backed out. I had the same case with somebody that was working in GRTS. I told her, if you are scared to talk about it, who am I to head to GRTS management to tell them about your problem when you are the one in question? There's not much I can do. The only time we can fight for your rights, your welfare, is when you're ready to own it. The biggest issue we're faced with as women in the media is, or as Gambian journalists, especially women, I think sometimes some of us are so much eager to be on the spotlight, to wine and dine with the top government officials, or to pose for the camera with politicians and dignitaries and diplomats. Sometimes this is how I feel, because I cannot imagine how can you be interning with an institution for 2 years. I don't understand how you work with the media house without a contract document, without an employment letter. I don't know how you do that. And I don't know how you have a work to do professionally interviewing a politician, and you don't stop there. You post these people on your status, you call them my friend, suma harit bi, ndaanaan bi. What part of you is professional? So how do you expect us to have that respect we deserve, like Yankuba said? Some of us, we welcome the disrespect. I should interview every politician or every female politician. That's the only interest I have here against 2029. That's the only interest I have, if you ask me right now as Annette, to give platform to every female politician looking ahead of the 2026 political cycle. But because I've had an interview with you and I took a photo with you in the studio, don't worry, it ends in the studio. But we don't stop there. We make friends with politicians. Are you a beggar? Let's face it. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable for me to say these things, but these are the realities on the ground, and we do this as journalists. And sadly, some of us are branded as political party journalists. There are some of us that only attend meetings and activities of some certain politicians. We don't attend for other people. There are some of us that we have not even hidden it. They have now associated as part of their parties. Sad reality. Now, the final one we talked about, you asked, was with Dija. I'll go back to that. One thing I can tell you, that girl is one of the strongest girls that I've known, and she's very principled. During the moment they were sharing her photos, I can tell you she was kind of worried. But if you ask me right now, I can tell you she does not care. In fact, they have actually motivated her to write more stories and to hold them even more accountable. I can comfortably tell you that. But most of the time when our women are being attacked, are being violated, are being abused, whether it is in their newsrooms or outside their newsrooms, what we do as women journalists is invite them for a conversation. So basically, this is what we do. Now, finally, to end this, you people should understand that most of the things that happens in the media houses is not under the control of the young reporters you interact with. It's not under the control of the person that interviewed you. It is under the control of the media, the editor of the institution, the person that has a final say. And they only go for what works best for the interests of their media house, not what goes down with your interest or the junior reporter's interest. We have had cases, and as I speak to you, we have a case I'm personally managing where she wrote a very good story and the editor said the story will not be published. You come to me, I tell you, sir, editor, we should publish it, you just open in media house, we publish it. It's as simple as that. This is the only thing we can offer. So this is why we call it a multi-stakeholder dialogue. This is why we invited politicians, representative of political parties and CSOs to use this opportunity to raise their concerns, ask questions, and we dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, you have a minute.
I have a comment. I just have I know. But I just have to thank you, first of all, for the great conversation and for everybody that's been here. There are a few things that I just wanted to say. One is journalists are allowed to monetize, right? But we must do it fairly. So, for example, you charge a party X because of perhaps they are a party that they are your people, and then another party comes and you charge them Y more. That's unfair. And also, she touched on a very important thing about the airtime, right? So we must be fair. But you know, there is this perception that journalists, like, they are so noble, they should not take nothing, right? No, that is it's something we need to look at. All right? Yes. What journalists must do is when they are paid, they must clearly state that this is paid for work. But the important thing which I couldn't leave today without talking about was what Madam Ananjai said, right? And I was waiting for my SG to compliment what you said, because the cybercrime bill, right? It's a bill, it's currently in Parliament. You people know how much I follow Parliament. This bill is currently in Parliament. This is one of the most dangerous bills that you will ever see for civil society, for the media. If you want to know how dangerous this bill is, I'm a member of the West African Media Society Association, whatever. They have been sending news reports about how other West African countries who have this same cybercrime act are using it to really put journalists to serious, there are examples. They have made examples. If you just go on Askanwi, on my media platform, because when that Media West Africa Association sends, I take it and then I publish it so that Gambians will know. If you want to know what is coming with that cybercrime bill, look at what is happening in West Africa, how other African countries are using it. But there is a chance, and this is where I'll end. There's an opportunity. The GPU has put out a position paper on this cybercrime bill. They have sat with us, that answers your question. Has there been consultation? And I was hoping that he would highlight it, but I know we got carried away. GPU has a position paper, which they have been talking to Parliament. Article 19 flew from Senegal to come here to talk about how dangerous this bill is. And my media have been pushing it out. Now, we should support the GPU's position paper. We as journalists should be reporting about that, putting it in our media, inviting the GPU to talk about the cybercrime bill so that the next frontier, which is going to be how they control the online space. And this is the bill that they will use to do that. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I think that was the lady in green. Okay, you wanted to know where to access the law or access. Okay, sorry, I missed that part.
The question is,
Yes.
despite being we having a lot of female journalists, sometimes they want to say something matter because, but they are looking at the credibility. How fast are they going to get the justice that they deserve? What are some of the implementation? That's why the law is there. But how fast are you guys acting towards this law so that it will come to reality?
You mean the cyber law or the laws that are already in place?
Covering women.
Okay, so the laws that are covering women, I mean, you have the Women's Act, which is basically the law that protects all types of women in the Gambia. And this law, there are certain provisions, let's say in the workplace, if there is any sexual harassment in the workplace, the authorities that you go to, you have the Department of Labor, you have the police. The police, they have a gender unit. You know, the police, they have gender units, right? In each police station, they have a gender unit. And they're responsible to deal with gender issues relating to women and children. So if, let's say, somebody is physically abused or verbally abused because you're a woman, you can go to them. And let's say you need support. Our association, we support women that, are victims of GBV or, there's a threat of GBV. And we follow if it's a criminal matter, we don't prosecute. Private prosecution is there, but it's it's a very, I don't know what to call it, a very tough way of prosecuting because it's like you're taking the role of the police. It's not usually very common in the Gambia, but it's there. But usually it's the police who prosecute. So let's say somebody was sexually harassed in a press house and she wants to pursue it. She can go to the Department of Labor and report it. She can also come to us and we follow that avenue of fighting the case of the sexual harassment. This is an option that is there. Also, the National Human Rights Commission is also there because they have a role to sort of like be a watchdog over some public bodies like the police because they report to the parliament on some of the issues that women are faced with at the end of the year. They have a specific section for women in their annual human rights report. So they are also an organization that one could approach if you feel that certain rights have been violated. So you have the police, you have FLAG, you have the right to hire a lawyer and go to court because the law is like a bottlehead. If you don't move it, it doesn't move. So you have to know what is in that law and how you can access it. So the moment you know how you can access it, then you use that avenue and access it, whether through a private lawyer or through an institution like FLAG or through the police. But the gender unit at the police, they should be looking at all this physical assault or even some online abuses. You should be making complaints to them. And if for any reason you don't see that your case is moving, why not come to FLAG and for FLAG to intervene to ensure that, they look into the matter. It's always very difficult, like she mentioned. We always have women coming in. They'll have, especially women of domestic violence. They'll report a case, you'll start the case, in the middle of the case, they withdraw. So it's something very common. But I mean, for us as lawyers, your client's instructions, if they withdraw, you don't have any choice. You just have to go with the instructions. So what I'll advise you is to look at all this legislation, and each legislation, they will tell you who is the responsible ministry and who are the public institutions that are supposed to ensure that it's implemented.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know some of us are hungry. You guys did the number here. Before then, I would just like to ask a question, got a cross question to all of the panelists.
If you had the power to implement just one immediate action in the next 6 months to improve the safety of women journalists, what would it be and who must be responsible for it? Anyone of you can.
Okay. I would have loved to hear more from political party representatives, because, like some of the concerns that we have had, journalists being assaulted at political events by the parties that organize those events. We would really want to know how you intend to address those for the safety of journalists as well. But I think to conclude, this has been a very good discussion. And for me, I think I would want to see that political parties are ensuring that journalists who are covering their events are free from intimidation and harassment. Sometimes it's just because the journalists have asked a critical question. But there is nothing wrong with asking a critical question. So, and there is no justification for an assault on that journalist for asking a question, for example. Even if they are not covering your organization favorably, there is actually no justification for an attack on that journalist. Therefore, I would want to see political parties put in place mechanism from the level of their executives to ensure that their party militants are not physically assaulting journalists. To the security agencies, I would also like to see that they ensure that security officers, especially the police who are deployed at protests and other events, also refrain from assaulting journalists who are covering those events, especially at peaceful demonstrations and the likes. And also that they should ensure, the police definitely need to ensure that perpetrators of violence against journalists, especially assault cases, are investigated and prosecuted. Like I said before, every day we hear in court someone has been charged with assault. Ordinary people out there. Why is it not happening when it occurs to journalists? That I would love to see. To journalists in the Gambia, whether they are women journalists or men journalists, I would like to see that they actually prioritize their safety when covering any events, whether it's political events or protests that have been organized by civil society and other actors, including political actors. And journalists should avoid putting themselves at risk when covering political events and demonstrations. And they should also avoid confrontations and verbal exchanges with political militants or security officers when they are covering those stories. Because when the moment you enter into confrontation, you increase the risk of being harmed in the field. These are things that journalists also need to take into account because we always say that no story is worth your life. And you are only able to tell a story when you are safe to tell that story. So for me, I think these are the key things that I want all of us as stakeholders to go home with and try to implement. Thank you.
So you has technically said everything I should say. So maybe I will look at a different angle now and skip that part. So to political parties and CSOs, if there's anything I want to see is for you to have or enforce internal code of conducts and publicly to have a code of conduct that is publicly available. We are tired of interviewing political parties, and we're tired of political parties intimidating journalists, especially women journalists online. Like you said, holding you accountable is what we are paid to do. It's nothing personal, it's professional. And again, if there is any recommendation from me is to enact and enforce media laws and reforms that are aligned to international standards, and of course to integrate gender responsive reporting in all our media houses. If I had my wish, every media house will, should, and must have a minimum of 3 editors, female editors, and have women in key positions which is management, to ensure that the stories reflect gender perspective, women voices, women faces, women names. If I had the wish in the next 72 hours, not even in the next 6 months. This is one wish I have, and I hope it is attainable. Thank you.
Yes, I think Annette has read my mind in terms of what I would wish for the journalists to have. I think as a fourth arm of government, like I mentioned, you deserve your own legislation. A legislation that would not only protect and safeguard your rights, but a legislation that would bring more opportunities for you, respected opportunities. And also a legislation that will also give more protection to women in journalism and a quota system. Because I think most of the issues that you have with media houses, I guess the people in the decision making powers are usually men. So if there's a quota system within the media houses that a certain number of women should be, like Annette mentioned, in the senior position, I believe certain decisions will not just be taken just like that. So I think this can all be covered into your media law and your regulations. The judges are fighting for their law. I think the National Assembly members will also soon fight for their own law. And as a fourth arm of government, you should fight for your own law. And I think you can do it if you come together collectively, both the GPU, the Women Association, I think you have Young Reporters Association. You just need to come together collectively and it can work. I never knew you didn't have a law like that really governs, even though the Constitution gives you that provision, because we have a law. And in our law, there's it tells you everything that needs to be there. And we have a code of conduct, which is recognized as a subsidiary legislation. So all the code of conducts that you're now fighting for in your different houses, once you have a law, you have your code of conduct. It's something that you need to respect. He managed to get a lawyer punished because of that law and that code of conduct. So, and I think this is something that you should really look into. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our panelists, Madam Anna Jai from the Gambia
Female
Lawyers Association, and also Mr. Modichu, the Secretary General of the Gambia Presidium, and Alex Kamara, the President of the Women Journalists Association. And also, I would like to thank our partners, the Gambia Presidium, of course, and also the UNESCO and civil society organizations for their support and commitment to journalism, safety, and press freedom in the Gambia. So therefore, let's continue working together, turn dialogues into action, which is very important. Protecting women journalists, it's a shared responsibility. Moving forward, it is our collective duty to translate these discussions into concrete actions that ensures journalists can work freely and safely and also with dignity. So, lunch will be ready by 1:30. Earlier on I said 1, but by 1:30, which is few minutes away, you can all just stay seated, and I'm sure or Mr. Juf will see you later. Till then, thank you all so much, and I hope we'll reflect this reality into our various institutions. Thank you.
Yes. Maybe you ask.
Well,